guys, Logan here, and welcome to Sunday Thoughts, a series where every Sunday I give my thoughts on a particular, person, place, thing, event, news, etc., and a lot of other topics as well. So yeah, for this Sunday Thoughts video, especially late Sunday Thoughts video, again, I'm going to be focusing my late Sunday Thoughts video on a particular Game of Thrones topic. This one is going to be about how, first of all, if for a full context, to give you a full context, I've already watched 4 seasons of Game of Thrones already. 4 seasons. I'm currently getting into season 5. I only have 3 more seasons of Game of Thrones before season 8 arrives on April 14th, which is the day that the 8th and final season will start. So again, I've already watched 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, the first 4, and I'll be getting into the 5th one after I'm through with this one, and as well as the upcoming Game of Thrones related video that I will be doing after this. So yeah, let's get right to it. First of all, I must say, I still have to watch the rest of the rest of this show, but I must say, as far as me watching as far as the 4 seasons of Game of Thrones go, I gotta tell you, I have thought about this long and hard, and I'll still think about this until after I'm through with the rest of the series before season 8 arrives, like I said. Game of Thrones is about to be on the verge of becoming the best TV show I've ever watched. Period. I'm not even kidding. I'm almost at that point. I'm just about to be at that point where I look at Game of Thrones currently as the best TV show I've ever watched, even better than Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now keep in mind, I really love Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I consider it to be one of the best shows I've ever watched, period. I really enjoyed almost every single part of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there are other shows that throughout this entire decade, that I've been a big fan of. But again, I must say this, after watching the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones already, I'm almost at a point where I can see Game of Thrones as the best show I've ever watched. It just depends on how I feel about the next 3 seasons that I will be watching before season 8 arrives. It just depends on how I feel about the next 3 seasons that I will watch after I'm through with this one, and then the next Game of Thrones related video that I will do. It just depends. But anyway, so yeah, Game of Thrones, I'm already loving Game of Thrones right now. I'm starting to be a huge Game of Thrones fan. Period. I might have already been a huge Game of Thrones fan already, but every time I watch more episodes of Game of Thrones that I haven't watched, I'm starting to become more and more of a big fan of Game of Thrones. I'm not even kidding. It's just that for real. To think that a show that is 1000% not for kids, little kids specifically, would be this great of a show to watch on a channel that I don't in particularly watch. I do watch. There are certain movies on there where I could watch from time to time, but regularly I don't watch HBO. But Game of Thrones is probably the only thing that I would ever watch on HBO. Or probably the best thing that I've watched on HBO. It's not even close. Not even any movie that appears on HBO, some that I like, are like not even easily that are not even easy to compare to Game of Thrones on HBO. I mean, it's just that insane. I just don't know what to say. I mean, after watching the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, it's just that insane for me to think, even for me to think that Game of Thrones is starting to become the best show I've ever watched. Even better than Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I really love. But Game of Thrones, I mean, I'm going all over the place, I apologize, but I just couldn't help it. My mind is just so all over the place on Game of Thrones. It's just that, for real. So, my overall late Sunday thoughts on this whole Game of Thrones topic that I'm discussing, it's starting to be, I'm about to be at a, once I'm through watching the first 3 seasons, I'll be at a, and 3 of them are just as good as the first 4 seasons that I've already watched. If the next 3 seasons are just as good, if not better, I'll be at a point, like I said, where Game of Thrones is starting to become the best show I've ever watched. It'll be on the verge of becoming the best show I've ever watched. Period. Point blank. That's how great Game of Thrones is. I mean, one fact that I heard of years ago, and it was at that time that I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but I watched this one video where at one point, this one fact was the average Game of Thrones episode cost $6 million. That is 2 to 3 times what a typical network or a cable show costs per episode. That just goes to show you how legit, or lit, as people in my generation would say, how lit this show is. I mean, it's just that simple. And one last thing before I end this Sunday Thoughts video on Game of Thrones. The more I watch this show, watch more of this show, the more excited I get for the final season of Game of Thrones. It's just that exciting for me. I mean, the more I watch Game of Thrones, the more excited I get for how this show will wrap up in the final /8th season of Game of Thrones. I'm just getting more and more excited for what's going to happen in this 8th season. But I just have to watch the rest of the show before I get to that point. Okay? So, yeah, guys, I guess those are my late Sunday thoughts on Game of Thrones, particularly this topic, where, like I said, my next video that I'm going to be working on after I'm through with this one is my Battle 5 video on Game of Thrones. This time I'm going to be focusing on my top 5 Game of Thrones moments so far. And in my last video, which was my reaction to the official trailer for The Lion King, I said I would put so far in that video because, again, I only watched 4 seasons of Game of Thrones so far. Just so far, okay? If you guys enjoyed this video, please click the like button and comment down below to let me know what you think is going to happen in Game of Thrones Season 8. If you enjoyed what you've seen here and you want to see future videos from me, please press up there to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great week, Battle Squad, and as always, fight the good fight.